Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. In studying the formation of criminal groups across the world, especially in Latin America, I have noticed a trend that occurs on a somewhat frequent basis, and that would be the link between political movements and their eventual descent into criminality. In Brazil in particular, this trend is common with gangs, including the two biggest in the country, Comando Vermelho and Primeiro Comando da Capital, both originally starting as groups advocating against prison brutality and for prisoners' rights, as well as other social causes. The links between revolutionary political movements and criminality are not exclusive to Latin America, however. Today, we discuss a gang simply known as Black Axe, or the Black Axe Gang, who are based out of Nigeria and have gone on to become one of the most violent criminal organisations in the country, despite starting as a revolutionary political protest movement. On the 7th of July 1977, 9 students from the University of Benin, led by Nicholas Idamudia, started the Neo-Black Movement of Africa, NBM, a male brotherhood focused on intellectual radicalism in pursuit of Pan-African struggles. The logo demonstrated this, depicting an axe cutting through the shackles of colonialism and non-independence. The logo would be where the group would eventually get the name that they are known as now, the Black Axe Gang. Like many political movements across the globe, NBM became a prominent group at many universities in Nigeria during the late 70s and early 80s. Its leaders then decided to connect with another neo-movement in Africa, calling itself a brotherhood focusing on African determinism. The iteration led to the creation of a subgroup, the Black Axe, in and around 1994. It was around the mid-90s where the Black Axe group would start to garner bad press, with some labelling the group as a cult. The movement would ignore more mainstream religions, such as Islam and Christianity, instead opting for local beliefs and religions in which they merged with their own form and ideas of social justice. The group would allegedly perpetrate violent acts on its own members to create a brotherhood of strong men, and they would also commit violence onto others. Despite the accusations of extrajudiciary violence as well as cult practices, the group claimed to fight against oppression, saying that its members would only kill for justice and would not kill the innocent. In 2008, Black Axe's membership was estimated to be over 1,000 educated males. In 2024, NBM of Africa publicly disassociated itself from the Black Axe confraternity and expelled nearly 50 connected members, including 4 former NBM national presidents, due to the group's rising levels of brazen criminality. However, various publications refer to NBM and Black Axe as synonymous, including the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada. In April of 2024, reporter Bianca Bridger wrote, "Due to the secretive nature of the group, it's difficult to ascertain the alleged links between the Neo-Black movement and Black Axe. However, throughout Nigeria, the two groups are synonymous, with their members taking part in organised crime, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and money laundering." In recent years, the group have essentially been recognised as a mafia-like organisation by many global authorities. In regards to the cult accusations, these primarily come from their recruitment practices and rituals for new members. Before recruitment and initiation, the potential members must sign an oath of secrecy, pledging that they would never reveal any information to non-members or violate the group's rules. Then, the initiation ceremony, which is sometimes called blending, takes place and all of the new members are gathered. Their gatherings are called jollification. There are several grim initiation processes that these men must go through before they are granted admission. It is claimed that the Axemen are stripped naked and forced to lie in mud while enduring severe physical abuse, while crawling through their tormentors' legs in a process known as the Devil's Passage, and then drink blood. This is used to degrade them and to then connect them. It's also said that some of the ceremonies include bonfires, drugs, and the SA of women. Leaders frequently use death threats and other types of violence against members that have any ideas of leaving the group, and the secrecy runs on fear. Some members, usually first-year students, are forcefully initiated. The Black Axe does this by portraying the university environment as hostile, and students as in need of protection. After they are initiated, they are given a black robe with their logo, and they are told that they have just acquired their coffin. The confraternity also has a ceremony called a gyration, where they worship Karofo, who they also call the unseen god, or the devil, to guide all men. In regards to the structure of the gang, little is known, though there is a relatively clear hierarchy that we see with most gangs. On the bottom rung of the organisation, you have what are known as the Eyes and Criers. The Eyes are responsible for keeping a lookout for police and rivals at different events and initiations. The Criers are responsible for drumming up publicity, including creating flyers and sending emails. Above the Criers and the Eyes would be the Butchers, who are essentially the hitmen of the gang. The Butchers are responsible for enforcing the rules, punishing members, and fighting rival gangs. What is known as chairmen are essentially upper-level managers who control the Butchers as well as the Eyes and the Criers. Lastly, the priests are believed to conduct the ceremonies, especially at initiations. The Black Axe gang also seem to have engaged in various acts of political misconduct. For example, Augustus Bamigo, a 2019 APC party candidate for political office, was connected to the Black Axe. Leaked emails show that he sent guidance on scamming to a network of collaborators on 62 occasions and communicated with others about specific scamming targets. Some of the documents in his emails show that in Benin City, 35 million naira, $85,000, was directed to the Black Axe to secure votes in 2012. In October of 2021, 8 members of the Black Axe were arrested and charged in connection with internet scams. In 2011 and 2012, members of the group in South Africa were accused of running romance scams and advance fee schemes to defraud investors. They used the widely known Nigerian email scams as well as social media dating websites and phone numbers to target US citizens. In 2021 and 2022, Interpol arrested 75 suspected members of the Black Axe for trying to wire $1 million over many bank accounts. This operation spanned 4 countries in 4 continents. Along with cars and luxury items, Interpol agents seized 12,000 SIM cards that helped identify many suspects. In 2023, a member of the Black Axe was caught trying to steal $1 million through money laundering. Starting in 2017, a man who was supposedly working with the Black Axe opened many bank accounts to conceal money that was secured from fraudulent schemes such as business email compromises. One of the names he operated under was the Bravo Trading Company. Aside from financial and political crimes, the Black Axe gang are most known for their depraved levels of violence against those who go against them. Much like their logo and their name, their favourite method of murder is to hack people to pieces with axes and hatchets, and over the last couple of years or so, several videos have made their way online showcasing these acts of depravity. There are many instances of violence between the Black Axe and other confraternities and gangs. In May of 2009, there was a fight between the Black Axe and the Denormand K Club of Nigeria. This led to injuries and deaths amongst students at the University of Abuja. In March of 2010, another fight broke out against the Mafiti confraternity, resulting in the deaths of 9 people. At least 53 people were injured or killed between March of 2009 to June of 2013 in fights between the Black Axe and their rivals, the I confraternity. Much of Black Axe's violent crime, including murders and are not reported, as there is little policing within their base of Benin City. On the 10th of July 1999, 40 members of the Black Axe gang drove to Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife. Holding shotguns and hatchets, they called out to specific students, saying things like, "Come out if you are men." Black Axe members then entered the students' residence, killing 5 and injuring 11 people. Within the last decade, the Black Axe gang have also branched out internationally, especially in Europe. In 2016, almost 24 Black Axe members were arrested in Italy for mafia conspiracy, drug trafficking, exploitation of prostitution, and violent crimes. A year later, more Black Axe members were suspected in other sex trafficking activities in Italy. In January of 2022, 4 Black Axe members were arrested after forcing a woman into human trafficking. She was forced into prostitution after a ritual that bonded her to her trafficker's debts. It was reported that she had been imprisoned, blackmailed, and forced into prostitution to pay a debt of around €15,000. Reporting on the Black Axe gang is relatively sparse, despite their growing stature in Nigeria and internationally, and their violent tactics are akin to any other criminal gang that we have covered on the channel. And much like their counterparts in Mexico and Brazil, they are very keen on filming many of their violent crimes, again, mainly involving their symbolic weapon of choice, the axe or a hatchet. But nevertheless, let's take a peek at the bloody and gruesome depravity of Nigeria's Black Axe gang. The first clip is recent, having been released sometime during late September of 2024, and having watched it, it follows a trend that I have noticed with pretty much every video related to the Black Axe gang. That being, the videos are usually recorded well after the violence has started, so immediately when watching these videos released by the group, you're almost always met with utter brutality and blood right from the outset. And the first video is no different. The clip has been recorded in a rural area that looks like a grassland, and it's been recorded during the middle of the day. You are immediately met with the sight of carnage and bloodshed, and initially it's hard to take it all in. You see a man who is bloody, battered and dishevelled, crumpled on the ground, and a man is standing above him. The man, who clearly has bad intentions, stands above him before striking the victim on the back of the neck or head with a tool. Initially, you can't see what it is. When the soon-to-be killer lifts the tool up, you then see that it is a yellow-handled hatchet. After the first strike, the victim recoils and frantically tries to crawl away, and his attacker pursues him, swinging the axe and missing initially. As the victim rolls and crawls away, you see the extent of his injuries. You see several lacerations on the man's body, but primarily on his scalp and at the back of the head. And as mentioned, he's covered in blood. He tries his best to crawl away, but he fails. He seems to partially give up, and he momentarily just looks at his attacker. The hatchet-wielding psycho then strikes the victim with the tool on the back of the head, just above the neck. The victim holds onto his head in pain, and once again he tries to get away, but once again he can't. Out of nowhere, the killer then takes the hatchet and swings it down, right onto the top of the victim's head, and this instantly drops him, and his last-ditch attempts at survival completely stop in an instant. The sound of the hatchet hitting the top of a man's skull is absolutely sickening. It isn't a thud, but instead a loud cracking sound. It's vomit-inducing. The victim makes a deep groaning sound before then being struck several times on the back of the neck with a hatchet, though it's incredibly blunt, which is probably why the victim sustained so much damage prior to the devastating skull blow. The victim's body jolts every time the hatchet hits the back of his neck. The killer also tries to cut into the back and shoulder areas, but the axe head is so blunt that it doesn't cut into the victim. Instead, it just bounces off, causing loud thudding sounds. The person filming seems to instruct the killer to aim for the head, which he obliges. The killer then again cracks the victim in the top of the skull, creating yet another sickening cracking sound. He then takes the hatchet, and this time he strikes the victim in the side of the head, just above the ear, and it cuts incredibly deep. In the latest laceration made, you literally see the whites of the victim's skull, despite the large amounts of blood covering his head. The person filming then gets closer to the victim, and you see that he is somehow still breathing. The person filming then begins to sound very animated. He shouts and sounds psychotically excitable. The killer then resumes the brutality, and he strikes the victim repeatedly in the side of the head and neck. You see blood spray, and the cracking sounds are absolutely brutal. You see flaps of skin hanging off the victim's scalp. He's been completely hacked up. Ultimately, this is the trend for most Axe Gang videos. They are frenzied, and the clips are usually very short, and very often, as I said, they feature axes. In a similar clip, which is only 8 seconds in length, Black Axe Gang members can be seen in the home of a victim. It's a home invasion murder video. The victim is laying in bed, with a nightcap on, and it's clear that brutality has already taken place prior to recording, as the victim's neck is bleeding. An Axe Gang member stands over the victim as he lays in bed, and he proceeds to hack away at the man with the axe. Initially, I thought he was dead, but I think he was unconscious, as after the first axe hit, you see blood spray against the wall, indicating that his heart was at least still beating at this point. The killer hacks away at the victim as he lays dying and bleeding in his own bed. There are also several aftermath videos of Black Axe Gang attacks. Usually, it's locals filming bodies of those eviscerated by the gang, but some showcase victims who are still alive, but barely, and these videos in particular give you a glance at the gang's depravity. In one such video, that is very reminiscent of the infamous Miss Pacman video, is a perfect example of that. The following clip is exactly 40 seconds in length, and immediately upon playing it, you are greeted with a sea of blood, and you see the victim of the attack, who is horrifically disfigured, to the point to where no human facial features remain. The video has been filmed in a small room, and I'm assuming that the person filming stumbled across the victim and didn't have anything to do with the attack itself, though I could be wrong. The entire floor of the room is covered in blood. It's one huge puddle, and how the victim is conscious, let alone alive, considering the blood loss and his severe injuries, I honestly have no idea. The person filming is talking to the victim in a panicked tone, and unbelievably, the injured man somehow responds. You hear a lot of chitter-chatter in the background. I wonder whether this happened in some kind of communal building. It's hard to explain, but if you have seen or know about the infamous Miss Pacman video, imagine that, but visually it's worse. Instead of one deep horizontal cut across the victim's face, the middle of the victim's face is essentially completely missing, leaving behind a huge mushy crater. The crater starts from the top of where his eyes used to be, to the bottom of the jaw. It's all one big mushy red crater. His eyes no longer exist, his nose and facial features are completely eviscerated, and his mouth is utterly mangled. I've no idea how he manages to talk, considering the damage, but he sounds awful. You hear squelching as he talks, due to the sheer amount of blood in what is left of his mouth. The camera then gets close to where the man's face used to be, and you see into what again I can only describe as a crater, which looks to be several inches deep. Aside from somehow talking, it's also unbelievable that the victim doesn't make any obvious sounds of pain, no grunts or screams. He sounds relatively calm as he talks, which juxtaposes with how brutal the visuals are. This is easily one of the most violent aftermath videos I've seen. I can't show any still images, so it's hard to explain this one, but it's easily the most bloody entry on this video, and goes to highlight the brutality of the Axe Gang. But anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you can enjoy this sort of content, if you're new here, if you could hit subscribe, would be much appreciated. Also, if you could follow me on Twitter, if you want to drop me a DM, you can do. If you have a case recommendation or something like that, feel free to drop me a DM. I'm not always the greatest at checking my DMs, but I do eventually get around to it. Also, a link to my Twitch will be in the pinned comments. But anyway, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.